Hi everyone! Thanks for joining me. We've been working on this pumpkin painting and I've added a few more layers I would like to share with you. So grab your paintbrush and let's go paint. So we're going to start by grabbing some of this liquid, and I keep mine in this little airtight container. It makes it pretty handy just to grab some out, and that also means that I don't have to open up this lid. If any of you use Liquid Original and have a problem with this lid, let me know in the comments below so I know that it's not just me. So I want to throw in the background of this pumpkin before I get in too much detail with the pumpkin in case I have to go over some mistakes if I get it on there. And I was thinking I kind of want the background to have some like old looking boards. So I'm taking a really stiff flat brush, and this is a hog hair brush, and I'm just using vertical strokes going up and down, creating all of these streaks to make that look like board. So I want this pumpkin to be sitting on like a hay bale, so we want that to be sort of straight. So I just use my finger as a guide, and I kind of just mark the opposite side of the canvas just so I know how far down I have to bring these boards. Now I've mixed a bunch of different colors. There are greens, browns, magentas, blues, yellows. There's everything on these boards in the back. And I always feel that with a still life, to make it look more realistic, try and pack in as much color as you can, as long as you're sticking with the same values. I'm switching to a little filbert brush, and it's by Princeton. It's a number 4, and the brand is actually called Snap. I thought that was a cute name. And I'm just going to go around the pumpkin a little bit. And I don't want to be too obvious, but I do want the pumpkin to stand out. That is one reason why I made the background, the board, so dark. And then just around the pumpkin, I'm going to make it ever so slightly darker, just so it does have that contrast against the back. And that will help it to pop a little bit more and become the focal point. I might change these leaves a little bit later on. So I'm not going to be too precise as to how I go around them. I just kind of want to get the dark color in. So now I'm going to start laying in the underpainting for the hay bale. And it's pretty much going to be almost the same colors as I used for the boards. I'm just going to pretty much slap it on the canvas, paying attention to where my shadows are going to be. Like on this side of that side of the pumpkin, and underneath the leaf are going to be the darker areas. So I'm going to have those a little bit darker just to help establish where the shadows are going to be, and then I'll add some highlights on top of that, and you're really gonna start to notice that this is a hay bale. But doing this underpainting first and letting it dry really helps to create the illusion of depth here with doing very little work. And again, I have to paint around the leaf because I did this all backwards. You're supposed to do the background first and then do the things that are in front of it. But of course, I knew I wanted to do the pumpkin and I didn't know how I wanted the background to be at the time. So I did it the hard way. We're starting to add shadow now to the pumpkin. And all this color is ultramarine blue, some burnt umber, and some pyrrole red is in this, and it just creates that really deep dark color. That's really good for this pumpkin. And if you see me talking with my hands right there, it's because I'm giving more instructions to my Patreon supporters. So that's why my hands sometimes move when I talk. I'm just going into all the little crevices within this pumpkin and creating that dark value. And I like to build up my highlights and my shadows very slowly. I sort of like the idea of glazing a little bit. So that's what I'm doing right here. This isn't going to be the darkest that this pumpkin is going to be, but because I don't have a reference photo that I'm basing all this off of, I kind of have to see the way it looks on the canvas before I can adjust the values the way I need them to be. And I go back and forth between using this Taklon filbert to lay on some shadow areas between a stiff hog brush, which I sort of blend, but it also creates streaks in the pumpkin, which add to the pumpkin's character and also helps you to see that this pumpkin is actually round. When creating a round object, you want to go with the surface of the object instead of just straight up and down. Going with the surface of the object helps it to show that it's a round object. So that's very important when adding highlights or shadows to any round surface. So my light source is coming from the top left, and that's why I keep sticking my hand up there, because when I'm adding highlights or shadows, I like to remember exactly the direction that the light source is coming from, so I get my shadows and highlights in the right area. So every single time I put my hand up there, it's just reminding me where the light source is coming from, so I can sort of see where the shadows would be hitting on this pumpkin. And this is the second layer of shadow that I was telling you about when I say I build them up slowly. I put shadow on the entire pumpkin and then realized that it needs to be a little darker, so I went back to the darkest area and I'm slowly darkening everything again. And I'll keep doing that until I reach the value that I really want. And there's that stiff brush that I told you about that I like to make the streaks. There's my hand telling me where the sun or the light source is at, and I'm just adding straight cadmium yellow on top of this, and that's just making it lighter in certain areas. And instead of using straight titanium white, I went with a cad because when an orange is lightened, you really don't see white. A lot of yellow comes out. So it's kind of like a sunset. So that was the reason I went with yellow as a highlight instead of straight white. And that's the same with these leaves. I'm adding a lot of yellow into them. And that is it for day 2's painting. But before we go, I want to share something with you. This is my palette I've been using, and I'm going to clean it up to show you how much paint I actually waste while I paint. And this is very important because I know a lot of people throw gobs of it away, and you don't have to. What I do is I scrape off all that has the liquid in it so they won't dry on my palette. And I wipe it on this little section right here. And all this other paint is from other paintings I've done, but right here, this little tiny amount of paint is all I've wasted on this one. And you can see how much I waste by judging it against my fingernail. So you don't need to be using a lot of paint when working with oils. With oils, you use very, very little paint. And this is the way I keep my palette. After I scrape everything off that I can, I take a small piece of shop rag and I wipe the rest of it clean. And it's ready to go for tomorrow. I've been using the same palette for a larger autumn scene as well, so that's why there's so much paint still on my palette, and that's where all the other colors on the rag came from as well. I really hope y'all enjoyed this painting. The final video will bring it all together with all the details, so I hope you have a wonderful day, and don't forget to hit that like button, share this with your friends, subscribe if you haven't yet, and hit the bell so you get notified when the next pumpkin video comes up. I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye!